In the last video, we looked at a function as a set of ordered pairs where x does not repeat. How do we determine whether or not a graph represents a function? Well, we can look at this first one, this linear graph. If I look at the value -6, it corresponds to one y value. If I look at 0, it corresponds to one y value. If I look at 4, it corresponds to one y value. Everywhere on this graph, x corresponds to exactly one y value. This is a function. If I look at this circle, if I choose the value of -2, I see that it corresponds to two y values. This is not a function. Pause your video and determine if each of these are functions. The first one, if I choose this value of x, it corresponds to two y values. It's not a function. This parabola, no matter which value of x I choose, it corresponds to one y value. This is a function. Do you notice that every time we checked, I drew a vertical line? This is known as the vertical line test. The graph of a vertical line intersects the graph of a function exactly once. The graph of a vertical line intersects the graph of a function exactly once. So when we're looking at graphs, we're going to use the vertical line test to determine whether or not we have the graph of a function. So we can look at a set of ordered pairs and quite easily notice whether or not x is repeating. We can look at a graph and use the vertical line test. But how do we know when we look at an equation whether or not we're looking at a function? Well, let's do a quick review here. We've got an equation, a quadratic equation, y equals 3x squared minus 2, and I want you to find the value of y if x equals -3. So you found that y equals 25. We see that we have an ordered pair then. When x is -3, y is 25. Quadratic equations are also functions, and we can use function notation to tell us that a given relation is a function. Remember, this is a relation. Our input was x, our output was y. So how do I show that this function or that this relation is a function? We're going to take y and write it as the f of x. Let's make a note here. It's not multiplication. When I meet with many of you, you say f into. It's not multiplication. This is a function notation that tells me that this is a function of x. The function of x equals 3x squared minus 2. Whenever we see this function notation, f of x, we remember that f of x is representing y. The x is there because we're saying in this function, the variable is x. We'll do more work with functions in the next video.